Hey everybody, it's Dr. Reinhardt from Proactive Health and Wellness. I hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. I wanted to go live today and do one quick message. We see a lot of kids with sensory processing disorder, and oftentimes we see sensory processing disorder as an output type of an issue. We see these kids with when they their family tries to go to the swimming pool, right? The sensory is overwhelmed, or sometimes when there's something that the child should be upset, they don't seem to react. We had a child who had a pretty severe injury one time, and he was like, "Mom, I think I should do something about this," right? And not necessarily the proper response for the child to have at that moment. And so oftentimes we see sensory processing as like an output type of an issue, and we see that we think that the brain's not processing the information that it's getting the way that it needs to. But what we find in our office is oftentimes it's not necessarily that the brain is not processing the information as it needs to. It's that the brain is not getting the information that it needs to be able to process it. And what does that mean? Oftentimes we find that if there's some kind of area where there's dysfunction, whether it's an injury or something similar, just a lot of stress, when there's that dysfunction, mainly in the spine, but there can be other joints as well, the nerve receptors in the joints don't fire when the joints are fixated. When the nerve receptors don't fire, it doesn't send information back to the brain. If the brain's not getting the information, then it just doesn't process it like it needs to, and all of a sudden the child has a sensory processing disorder. And so oftentimes what we see is when we start working with kids and we find where that major dysfunction is, and we find where the problem is, and we work on starting to correct it, the first thing that we see is the child actually becomes like whiny, right? Because their brain is starting to get some information it's just not used to being, starting to get some more neurologic input. And it just doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't know how to deal with it. And eventually, after we continue to give them this information so for a long enough period of time, the brain recognizes this information, it starts to understand what it's supposed to do with it, and then all of a sudden, the child starts to come online. Child starts to behave differently, starts to not get overwhelmed in certain situations, or something as simple as eating dinner went from a challenging situation becoming something it's much, much easier, not just for the child, but for the entire family. So, if this sounds like your child, this sounds like something or someone that you know, we still have tickets available for The Perfect Storm, live tomorrow night at Barrel and Boar at Creekside. We're going to be going in depth. We're going to be talking for about an hour about where we see a lot of these sensory processing and where a lot of these issues actually start. And more importantly, if there is an issue, what can we do to give parents real-time information on what can we do to help the children and help families start leading a normal life and having a normal summer. So we'll put the link to the workshop in the comments below. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we hope to see many of you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.